Hey kids, Mr. Peoples here, and today we're going to be talking about victory and consequences of World War II. You have two learning targets. The first is I can explain why the Nazis targeted specific groups in the Holocaust. And the second is I can explain why the United States used the atomic bomb and its effects on the world. All right, after the D-Day invasion, hundreds of thousands of Allied troops begin landing on the European coastline. And the Allies begin moving toward Germany. They start pushing the Germans back towards Germany. By July of 1944, so just 1 month after D-Day, Allied forces break through the Western Front. By August of 1944, again, just a few months after D-Day, Paris, the capital of France, is free of German control. Then the Allies push through Belgium and Luxembourg. The Germans at this time, Adolf Hitler specifically, planned a desperate attack. He planned to put all of his forces into this attack. And it came in this area bordering Luxembourg and France, where there's a forest called the Ardennes Forest. And this attack becomes known as the Battle of the Bulge, because the Germans launched this attack and pushed the Allies back 65 miles. Forming a bulge in the line. This is what it looks like here. So the plan was to unleash all of the forces into this one area, forcing the Allies back and pushing them off of France, or off of the European continent. Unfortunately, that didn't work. It was successful at first, and it pushed the Allies back 65 miles and created this bulge in the line. And that's where the name Battle of the Bulge comes from. But the Allies quickly recover and begin to push that bulge back and continue to push towards Germany. By January of 1945, so within 6 months after D-Day, the Germans begin to retreat. Because Hitler had put all of his hopes into that final attack, he had very little manpower and equipment to sustain fighting the Allies. So the losses become heavy, between 70,000 and 80,000 American casualties, and even larger numbers for the Germans. The Allies were using our bombing planes and doing that successfully to devastate major German cities. By April of 1945, the Soviet troops enter Berlin. And at that point, Adolf Hitler, as Soviet troops enter Berlin, Adolf Hitler commits suicide. The Allies have control of Germany, along with continuing to take control of other parts of Europe. April 12, 1945, President Franklin Roosevelt dies of a stroke. This was very sad news for the country. He had led the country through the Great Depression and World War II. And although World War II isn't completely over yet, the end is near. And so it was very surprising to hear that Franklin Roosevelt died, and it was very emotional for some people in America when he did die. On May 8th, 1945, so not even within a year of D-Day, the Germans surrender, and as do the Italians, and Victory in Europe Day is declared on May 8th, 1945. And around the country and around the world, there were celebrations. Here you can see Times Square in New York City. There were celebrations to celebrate that the war was over in Europe. The new president, Harry S. Truman, now had to set his sights on the Pacific War, and specifically Japan. The United States had been in some very difficult battles with Japan. And one of the things that the United States had discovered was that the Japanese were not going to surrender. On every little island that the Americans encountered the Japanese fought to the death. They did not surrender, and which meant that more American soldiers were going to die as the United States tried to remove the Japanese from those islands. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment when we get to the atomic bomb. As these soldiers start to push the Germans back to Germany, there are things that they start to see, like concentration camps that they start to liberate. They start to realize the depth of what Hitler was doing to the Jewish people. The Nazis attempted to kill the entire Jewish population in a program called the Holocaust, a program of mass murder known as the Holocaust. By January of 1942, the Nazi officials met and planned their final solution to the Jewish question, which was to eliminate that entire group of people. And so as the American soldiers and Russian soldiers started pushing towards Germany, they started to see these concentration camps that the Nazis had forced Jews, Gypsies, Slavs, and other political opponents into. They started to see these camps that were equipped with gas chambers designed to kill large numbers of people, and furnaces to try and cremate the victims' remains, to eliminate any evidence that this took place. As a result of this, more than 6 million Jews were killed, as well as millions of others. Okay? It was a very horrible situation, and many soldiers wrote about in their letters home the horrors that they saw when they encountered these camps. I'm going to show you a couple photographs here. First, these are some of the camps around Germany and Poland. And you can see some of the famous names of some of them. Auschwitz, Dachau are some of the more famous ones. I'll show you some actual photographs from Dachau or Auschwitz, one of the two, that a parent gave to me when they went to Europe. So we'll take a look at some of those, what it looks like today. But these concentration camps became known to the world more specifically when the soldiers started coming through there. It was believed that this was going on, but a lot of people thought it was just a rumor. Unfortunately, it was a rumor that was very true. All right, so the United States is focused on ending the war with Japan, and throughout the course of the war, Allied scientists had been working to build an atomic bomb, a weapon that releases tremendous power by splitting atoms. And the secret program that was used to develop this weapon was called the Manhattan Project. When the Germans surrendered, the United States didn't have to use that on Germany. That was the intention at first, was to use it on Germany, but Germany had surrendered by the time that the bomb was ready to go. But Japan had not. And so President Harry Truman had to come to a decision: drop this enormous weapon that would cause a lot of devastation, or continue with the war. And one of the things that President Truman used to make his decision was he used the fact that Japanese had not surrendered on any of the islands, and that caused more Americans to lose their lives because it took longer to win that battle. And so if the United States were to invade the island of Japan, President Truman believed that many, many American lives were going to be lost in that attack. So he took that number, which he believed was going to be very large, and he compared it to the number of people that would be killed by this bomb. And he believed that dropping the bomb would save American lives. And so he made the decision, after giving the Japanese leaders an opportunity to surrender, he made the decision on August 6, 1945, to have the B-29 bomber, Enola Gay, drop an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. The explosion killed almost 80,000 people instantly. Thousands more died from burns and radiation poisoning weeks, days, even months later after the bomb. The Japanese leaders refused to surrender after this bomb was dropped. I want to show you some of the images of devastation. On the left, you can actually see the cloud from the releasing of the bomb. On the right, you can see there is very little left of the city after the dropping of the bomb. There used to be buildings and homes here. You can even see some of the buildings that were left standing, but everything else is gone. You can see the trees are just sticks, or there's nothing left. Here's a building that used to have cement on both sides, of this little dome-shaped thing. But this is all that was left of this building after the bomb. This is what it looked like days after. This is what it looks like today. It's still there as a memorial to the people who lost their lives. Here's a black and white view of this of the location where the atomic bomb was dropped. The X marks the spot where the bomb was ground zero. Now, the bomb did not actually explode in the ground. It exploded above ground. The scientists did this, or set the bomb up to do this, because it would cause more damage. If it actually hit the ground and then exploded once it hit the ground would absorb a lot of the energy. And so the military leaders decided we're going to detonate it above to get the full effect of the bomb. And so here's a model of what the area looked like. There's that domed building. You can see what it looked like before. And then over here is what it looked like after. You can see the buildings and things in that little triangle peninsula area is completely gone. So the Japanese refused, after the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, the Japanese refused to surrender. So a few days later, President Truman authorized the dropping of a second atomic bomb on the city of Nagasaki. 1/3 of the city is destroyed, 22,000 people killed instantly. Here's what it looked like. Again, this is the city of Nagasaki. This is what it looked like afterwards from the air. You can see everything gone. I mean, you can even see the hills that you can't really see here because of the buildings in the way. You can see where those hills and ridges are after the bomb because there's nothing left. And then you can see the cloud left from the bomb. A couple days later, on August 15th, 1945, the Japanese announced their surrender ending World War II. August 15th becomes known as VJ Day, and it is the official end of World War II. And again, people went to the streets and celebrated the fact that the boys would be coming home soon. World War II was the deadliest war in world history. 50 million people were killed worldwide. National economies in Europe and Asia completely destroyed, and there were millions of civilians in Europe left without food, water, or shelter. Here you can see the Japanese signing the surrender on the USS Missouri. This is Douglas MacArthur right here. And one of these two guys here, I can't quite tell which one's MacArthur. But MacArthur is one of the generals who signed the surrender. The USS Missouri is docked at Pearl Harbor, right next to the USS Arizona, so you can actually go and visit the USS Missouri, and you can see the place on deck where that treaty was signed. And I can show you some pictures of that in class, since I was able to go there this year. So that is how World War II ends. Remember, your learning targets were about how the Nazis systematically tried to kill a group of people in the Holocaust, and to be able to describe why the United States dropped the atomic bomb and its effects on the world. Okay, so hopefully you can do those. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you again soon.